Rebound, UConn. Denham Brown, 3 to go. Denham Brown for 3. No good! By George, the dream is alive.
Please help me in welcoming former professional basketball player, an individual who was featured on the cover of Sports Illustrated and was the starting shooting guard on the 2006 George Mason team that made the improbable run to the Final Four. Number 22, Lamar Butler. How you doing, Lamar?
Appreciate it. I'm doing well. I can't complain. How's everything?
Hey, everything's going well, man. With the tournament going on right now, it still gives me the chills and the memories thinking about what you guys accomplished. I think nowadays you hear like the buzzwords, the Cinderella, bracket bust. None of that really was a big thing until you guys made it happen. I think you guys changed the landscape of college basketball and how people perceive mid-majors in the tournament. It's always a possibility now. So honored to talk to you, man.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's so easy to kind of jump right into that season and that tournament. But before we kind of go into there, can you just kind of give a background of how did you get into basketball? How did it all start for you? And what led you to Mason?
Well, my dad was an athlete. So I was introduced to sports from the time I was born. But my first love was honestly football. But I don't know if you've seen my body. I wasn't built for it. I think I took a hit in like 8th grade. And I was like, you know what? This ain't for me. But I can remember when I first started loving basketball. I was 12 years old because I wasn't that good. My dad was my coach, and I wasn't even starting on my basketball team. But I remember I was in the boys club championship, and we were down 1, like 7 seconds left. And I was dribbling up the sideline, and I lost it out of bounds with turnover, and we lost. And that was the first time I felt emotions. And that's when I was like, okay, this is something that I want to pursue. And I was in like maybe 6th or 7th grade, so I didn't really start having a passion for it until I was, pretty much in high school. And that's when, I kind of developed the hunger to be better.
Yeah, I think you always kind of need a setback. You need something to help drive you. I think a lot of folks that I speak to, they all mentioned, they're like, hey, I wasn't the best growing up. I didn't have all the skill set. It was just through grinding and just being persistent. And that's something I think a lot of people can take away. I think a lot of people say, hey, it's God gifted. Sometimes it's just something you developed. I think players like Steph Curry, for example, wasn't the tallest, wasn't the biggest guy, but one of the best players in the league. Just being around the right people, the right support, and just grinding. So definitely hear you on that.
Yeah, I think you have a skill set that maybe is God-given. Maybe it's your physical ability, your ball handling.
It's what you do with it too.
Does. Yeah, you can't teach what Kyrie does or what he has. That's God-given. But like you said, what he does with it is the work that he puts in his craft. Yeah. But some stuff is God-given ability that you just can't. No matter how hard you work, you'll never have.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's what you do with it, though. You can have everything, but how do you apply it?
Right, for sure.
So what led you to Mason? I know you're from nearby Maryland. Mason's nearby, but what brought you there?
So as far as my recruiting, it was funny. The first letter that I got from Mason, I actually ripped it up. I told the coaches that too when I committed. I ripped it up because at that time I was getting letters from ACC schools, Big East schools, Atlantic 10 schools. So to me, I wasn't looking at Mason. But it was a guy, Terrence Nixon. He was a senior when I was in 8th grade. My dad coached my high school team, assistant coach. So I was always around in middle school, and I was the camera guy. So I recorded the game. So Mason was recruiting Terrence, and he ended up going there. So I was always around the staff, and I would go to the games when I was in high school. But again, I just never had a vision of myself going there. So my final 3 was Xavier, GW at that time. Both were elite, and George Mason. David West was actually recruiting me, played for the Warriors in the championship team. I went to summer camp. I was all in on Xavier, to be honest. Coach Prosser ended up leaving and going to Wake Forest, and their first recruit was a guy named Chris Paul. So that kind of put a damper on me going there. And then GW, my friend TJ Thompson ended up committing before I did. We both played the same position at the time. So when he committed, it was like, I don't want to compete against my friend. So actually I prayed about it. because at that time as well too, Maryland was talking to me. He said, if you go to prep school, you need to be bigger in the weight room. My high school we didn't lift weights. I was super skinny. You need another year to get stronger. We'll take you, but I didn't have money for a prep school.
Right.
So I just prayed about it, and I'm gonna tell my dad like I'm going to Mason. He was just like, "What? You going where?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to Mason." And he was just like, it was paused. He just stopped. It's like, that's where you want to go, and he was upset about it. But it's funny because 4 years later he was having more fun than I was, and it turned
Exactly.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah. No, it's crazy because Mason, it wasn't nationally known until probably you guys put it on the map. But Mason's a huge school. I mean, Fairfax is a well-known area in Virginia, East Coast. So school-wise side is pretty large, but in regards to basketball program, still Division I, but wasn't as elite. So I think it's exciting to really talk to you about how you guys started the season to how it was at the Final Four, how people perceived George Mason. So I think I'm going to be excited talking to you about that today. So you're at Mason. I think, you guys went to the Final Four. That was your senior year, I believe. A lot of people, when we think of that year, we think immediately of March Madness and Final Four, but we forget there was actually a regular season that took place. Can you maybe talk about how that season went? And from my understanding, I think during the CAA tournament, you guys played Hofstra, and you guys actually lost. So can you maybe talk about how that season went and led you guys to where you at? Do you think that loss against Hofstra really just brought a spark to you guys?
Well, that season was a culmination of, I would say it started like our sophomore year. Our sophomore year is our most talented team by far at Mason. We had 2 starting fives. And myself, Tony Skin, Ja, we were seniors in 2006, but our sophomore year, we were thrown into the fire. Coach benched the upperclassmen, and he started us, and we made a run to the NIT tournament. We lost in the second round at Oregon, the game before the Sweet 16. So that gave us some experience. We lost to Carolina. We were up 2 at the half down in Carolina. We ended up losing that game. So we had some experience early in our career, and it allowed us to gel as underclassmen all the way up through upperclassmen. We just went through the fire. That junior year we had was bad because we lost those seniors from our sophomore year. We relied on freshmen, but it also allowed those guys to go through the same growing pains we went through our sophomore year. We took some lumps to Michigan State. We lost 66-60, a team that we played the following year in the tournament. We played against Maryland. Tony was out that game. We got it blown out, but it was just experience for those guys. Coach really leaned on us our junior year, but those guys were able to grow up. So then you go fast forward to our senior year. It's just an experienced team. Start from our sophomore year to those guys starting their junior year. And we had a humbling experience. We were a very confident group. That wasn't something that just showed up in the tournament. Right. Against Creighton, we got blown out at home. Coach sat us down. He turned the heat all the way up in the locker room. We watched film for 3 hours. We watched every single play, and he broke it down. He just humbled us and basically let us know, like, we don't do the things that we need to win, we won't have the success that, he knows or he knew that we were capable of having that year. So that kind of got us right back on the track of being focused and knowing that we have a goal this year, and that's to win the CAA and get to the NCAA tournament. So we had a strong year. We cracked the top 25 twice. We lost to Hofstra final regular season that week. Then we lost to again in the tournament. But in the tournament, we were just beat up. Ja had a sprained ankle. He had 2 sprained ankles. I think Will was hurt. So we just kind of limped into the NCAA and into the conference tournament. They got us.
What was the expectation for, like, personally for you that season and for the team, like, heading into the season? What was the expectation?
Just win. All of us had made some type of all-conference team, the seniors. It was just winning at that point. We hadn't made it to the NCAA tournament. Coach actually called us in the office in the offseason and said, you will be the first class that hasn't gone to the NCAA tournament. So that kind of lit a fire under the seniors. I just remember that meeting. We just kind of looked at each other and on the walk back to the student apartments. We were like, we're going to the NCAA tournament. So we stayed on campus that summer. Didn't go home. We just worked out every day with each other, underclassmen as well. We just made a point, like, hey, we're not going home this offseason. Everybody's staying, and we're going to work. So that season, was really a combination of that work from the previous year, taking those lumps
Right.
all season, all summer, putting in the work as a unit. It just showed on the court and it brought us together. The pool workouts, suicides in the summertime. I mean, all of that work, just the fruit was the Final Four.
No, I think what you hit on, you definitely can see it too, especially nowadays in college basketball. There's a lot of one and dones, right? Whereas mid-major programs like Mason, you see a lot of guys who've actually played with each other for about 4 years, so they have the continuity. Do you think that definitely helped?
Oh, for sure. Like I said, that summer we stayed together and worked out. But two, all of us were from Maryland, so
yeah. And Maryland's not too far, so if you guys want to go home,
yeah,
about 30, 40
right. Yeah, it helped all of us being from the DMV area. I think the furthest was Baltimore. It helped a ton because we could just relate to each other because we even if we didn't know the person directly, we knew somebody that knew him. So it was like just like one big family. But it definitely helped for sure having that camaraderie off the court because it showed on the court.
Right. Yeah, you definitely need to. I mean, you can have the talent, but just kind of trusting each other, knowing everyone's moves and the strengths and weaknesses, and that's something you guys definitely displayed throughout the tournament. So, kind of just diving further more into the tournament. So, you guys were seeded 11th seed, which is actually a pretty solid seed. Again, you guys were not just any bums in there, right? Despite all the surprise that people had. You guys, like you said, from sophomore year up to the senior year, you guys kind of gelled together. Expectation was for you guys, at least internally, to make it to the tournament. You guys played against Michigan State first round, UNC second round, Wichita State Sweet 16, and then UConn Elite 8, which eventually got you guys to the Final Four. Those are all powerful house conferences. When you think about the schools, those are usually schools that usually wins it all. I think the tournament, at least the last 2 games, were held in DC. Can you just talk about what was that mindset, going to the first game and then, the last 2 games playing in DC, which is essentially our backyard?
That was always the goal, to go home and play in front of our fans. Not to look past North Carolina or Michigan State, but I guess you could say we did. It was the theme was let's win these 2 games so we can go play in front of our home crowd. Again, we played Michigan State the year before, and like I said, we sucked. And we held. Chris Hill hit 2 threes to pretty much seal the game. It was a tie game with less than a minute and a half left, and he hit 2 threes to win the game. Wasn't afraid of them. But then again, our sophomore year, Tony, and Jai played against North Carolina our sophomore year. I ended up breaking my foot in the beginning of the game, but we were up 2 at the half. So we have familiarity with that, the way they play, their style of play. Played Michigan State the previous year. So there was no fear. It was almost like redemption for us.
Right.
For all of us to get those 2 games back that we lost in the previous years. So the thing, like I said, from that first weekend was let's win these 2 and get back home in front of our home fans and hometown. Like we're all from the DMV, so that drove us.
It was like a home game for you guys.
Yeah, it was, but it just drove us like let's get back home so we can play in front of our hometown. This is opportunity. It's not coming back for us. We're seniors.
So I think you even talked about it earlier. Like when you first mentioned to your dad that you're going to commit to Mason, he was kind of in shock. But again, this is probably one of the first times I think nationally where George Mason was recognized across the board. Can you talk about, going into the tournament, how were you guys perceived by like media or just fans? And then, when you guys got to the Final Four, how did that all change? I'm sure it was like night and day.
Yeah. We saw the commentary. We shouldn't have got in. Hofstra should have got in. They beat us twice in the last week. Nobody knew that we were injured, but who cared? They just see the W's and the L's. So we saw that, and I was just, again, if you were around that team and you talk to anybody about that team, super confident. So that just gave us more fuel. It just made us want to prove everybody wrong. Right. So again, we saw the commentary. We actually had a chance to meet those guys, Bill Raftery. I forget who else it was. We went out to eat at the Final Four. And they were actually upstairs. And they came down to apologize to us.
That's funny.
They came down to apologize to us. And I still remember all of us looking at them like, whatever.
Yeah, we're doing us. We know what we're capable of.
Even before the UConn game, Fran Fraschilla was just like, they have no shot.
Right.
And like, it's again like that team just built different. It was just okay. Well, we'll make you remember everything you said, and yeah, that was just the mentality of that team, just mentally tough.
So I know you talk about the confidence, which is very important, but were you even surprised amongst yourselves and the team that how far you guys went? I think you guys had a lot of expectation, but was there any surprise, or when did you guys like, hey, we're going to probably make a run for this? Was there ever like a thought of that?
No, it was more disappointing that we lost to Florida. Because you watch the teams that you're playing against, and then the field shrinks. You kind of get your eyes on who you're going to play against. And we saw Florida, we saw LSU, we saw UCLA. I remember like this yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, it's no way we're losing to one player. UCLA at that time depended on Jordan Farmar for everything. It's like, we're not losing to just one player.
Right.
And LSU couldn't score. So we were like, man, this Florida is our championship game. We win this game, we win the national championship. So that was our mindset, which is why the loss stunk so much, because we knew that was the championship. And then you saw Florida dismantle UCLA in the national championship.
Yeah.
So that was just our mindset. It wasn't never any fear. It was it's another opponent. Let's go win.
Right. So part of that Florida team was Joakim Noah. He's someone that's known to be pretty vocal and stuff. Is there memories of that game? Did he say anything to you specifically, or anyone for the team, or anyone?
No, they weren't a trash talking team.
Yeah.
None of our opponents, to be honest, were.
Yeah.
Like UConn, we said some stuff, but it wasn't nothing disrespectful. We had more trash talking in our conference.
Yeah.
Michigan State was chippy. North Carolina was quiet. I don't remember talking trash to anybody. I mean, I knew David Noel, and that was my boy. Like, I knew him prior to the tournament, but no trash talking from them.
Yeah.
Michigan State was just physical.
Yep. That's what's usually known
Wichita State was a little chippy with no trash talking. Yeah, UConn was probably the only game, and it was more so they had an arrogance about them, and we were kind of just like dead balls. They would say stuff, mainly Rashad Anderson, Denham Brown, like little stuff, but it wasn't disrespectful.
Right.
Like big times in the game, like you're not getting a shot today.
Yeah.
Because Rashad Anderson hit the game winner or to put them in overtime against Washington. So like dead balls, he would like say something. I can't remember what he said. I just remember, this not happening in this game. And stuff like that, but nothing.
That's a competitive talk, though. That's pretty typical.
Yeah, right. It was nothing disrespectful at all. Like I said, the conference games were more, you had more disrespect on the court than the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. I mean, because you guys see each other all the time. It's like, oh, these guys.
Yeah. You kind of like have a hate for the conference, conference games. So those were more disrespectful. Referees got to step in and tell you to chill out. So.
Yeah, I asked that because, again, you guys were like the underdog coming in. Those are some powerhouse teams, and you guys are the mid-majors. So I didn't know if they kind of, use that against you guys. Or from what I read in the headlines, if I remember, Coach Larinaga, the coach of George Mason, I think during a UConn game, kind of helped fire you up from what I heard, saying that UConn, they don't understand, they don't know which conference you guys are part of, and all this and that. Was that something he kind of lit the fire on during that game internally for you guys?
Well, actually, we saw it before the game. We were watching TV in the hotel room, and I want to say it was either my teammate Tim Burns or Gabe. They put it in like the group text, like turn the channel, one of the news channels, and the anchor was asking them what conference are they in, what's their mascot.
Right.
Mind you, this is the day before the game, and none of them could answer. So it's only 4 teams at the locations. This is Sweet 16, so it's only 4 teams. Like, you can't. After the first game, you should know the scout report. They couldn't name our names.
Right.
So like, we play y'all tomorrow. It's like, okay, well, your media day is the day before the game.
Right.
So if you don't know our names, our conference, our mascot, school location prior to the game, that shows me how serious you take us. So by the end of the game, you're gonna know who we are, and that was just our mindset. So Coach L saw it too, but it really wasn't his doing. He just used it as bulletin board material.
Yeah, use that ammunition. No, I hear you on that.
Yeah.
So when you reflect back, that whole year and then the tournament, what are some things that kind of just comes to mind, like feelings, or what memory still sticks with you to this day?
the loss to Florida.
Yeah.
It took me about 7 years to watch it. And I remember I was at my parents' house, actually. I was going through some old stuff, and I saw the DVD, so I popped it in. And I watched it upstairs by myself. And then I called Coach L just to talk game plan, like what we should have done. He was like, yeah, we should have done X, Y, and Z. That was the first time I watched it. That sticks out from that season the most, obviously. But outside of that, I would just say how much fun we had as a unit.
It was fun watching you guys, man. It was fun watching you guys.
We really were like that off the court in the conference. Like, it was just always fun. Like, it was never, I never felt like it was business, because this game could be a business. You can get that feeling, but it was never that feeling. It was just, let's have fun today and go out and compete. That was just always our theme going into a game: compete, just have fun.
I think that's the number one thing, man, just in life in general. It's just enjoy what you do. If you enjoy what you do, everything kind of comes together. And we definitely saw it. I remember I was in high school at the time when I watched you guys. It's one of those things where I remember where I was at, especially for a UConn game. I was in Herndon. I was at a bar with my uncle watching the game. It's just one of those moments. But it was, even if you weren't a big fan of college basketball, like myself, I love basketball, but wasn't a huge fan. But it was kind of like watching Olympics or the World Cup. You just kind of get gravitated. I felt like even if you weren't from Mason or from the area, everyone was rooting for you guys. And it was exciting, man. And like you said, it was heartbreaking to see that Final Four. But like you kind of talked about re-watching the game and actually thinking about what we could have done differently. What would you have done differently that you think we could have changed the outcome?
One thing we noticed what they were doing at the time, they were playing high side in the post, and they were forcing us to the baseline because they had the height advantage.
Yeah.
So what they were doing was forcing Ja to his weak hand and forcing Will to the weak hand. And when they came, because they were using their weak hand, they were almost like jumping backwards into the defense. Because Joe came in 6'11", Horford is 6'9", 6'10", our bigs are 6'6". The length played an issue. They were forcing them into tough shots, and that's their weak hand, which is a tough shot. So we talked about we should have ran more screen and roll to get those bigs away from the basket. But even during the game, their guards weren't that good on defense. And I remember the first media timeout, we told coach, like, man, we can attack their guards off the bounce. We don't need to be patient and try to force it inside. The advantage is on the perimeter. And he's like, go for it. So I remember I got an open layup. I missed it. It was a bunny, like a floater, bounced around. Tony got one, Shot got one. It was like 3 misses in a row.
Right.
He was like, all right, enough of that. But I was like, coach, those are good shots. We just missed them. But I remember their guards just couldn't stay with our guards. But that was our advantage. But we tried to punish them in the paint too much. He just said we should have gone more screen and roll. Something we had kind of worked on prior to the tournament. We should have gone to that to get their bigs away from the basket.
I know that loss really sticks with you, but I think sometimes we're really hard on ourselves, and sometimes we forget about the positive things that really came out of it. So I'd say, man, hey, you had a professional career after that. You guys put Mason on the map. You guys, when you watch March Madness, you guys always hear about you guys, George Mason, or you guys see visuals of you guys. So you guys made history, man. So nothing to be down about for sure.
No, not at all. Not at all. Those days are gone of being down.
Yeah. So in addition to the tournament around that time, you were regional MVP when you guys were in DC. You got the MVP award for the regional, and you were also on the cover of Sports Illustrated. That's pretty cool, man. Like, how did that feel? How did it all come about?
So the actual play that was on the cover, we was playing against Carolina. It was a late whistle. They turned it over. I actually took a dribble, and the referee called a foul on the pass on the intercept. So I was yelling that was a bad call, a late whistle. I had a breakaway dunk. But that play was the cover. But I remember when we got the cover, we were at practice, and it was after practice I was shooting on the opposite end. Yeah. And Coach L got a fax. Somebody brought him a fax from the SID. I guess they faxed it to him, and they brought it him. And all I heard him was yell. He's like, "Oh my God!" He's like, "Lamar, you got to come look at this." And I was just like, "Man, I brushed him off at first, and I turned back around. He's like, "Lamar, get over here." So like the team is standing around the free throw line on the other end of the court, and it was me and JJ on the other side, assistant coach shooting. So like, let's go see what it is so we get back to shooting. So I go down. Coach L he's always looking at something, trying to show you something.
Right.
One of his another something else that he just excited about it is really nothing. So I go down there and he shows it to me. And I was like, oh wow. And it was a black and white copy. So I was like, oh wow. So I saw it. He's like, I'm gonna put it down over on the chair on the side of the court. I was like, cool. So I go back down. I went back shooting, finished our workout. It was like 20, 25-minute workout after practice shooting. And so afterwards, I go get a couple of Gatorade and sit down looking at it. And it hit me. It's like, dang, I'm on the cover for Sports Illustrated. It didn't hit me right away, but it hit me after I finished working out. And I was like, man, like, so I remember I called my parents. It's like, yeah, I'm going to be on the cover. I went and got my phone out the locker room. Yeah.
That's the big deal, man. That's the best of the best that's on there. If you follow sports and, you're into magazines, you know, that's top notch. So they didn't even reach out to you beforehand to get permission or anything like that. They just, and I know you didn't have an issue with it first off, but.
No, not at all. Yeah, just like a fax came through.
That's awesome.
Like I said, they went and grabbed it. Like, again, it didn't hit me at first because I was shooting, but when I sat down and was like looking at it, it's like, oh, this is nice.
No, that's cool, man. That's something that many people can say. A lot of people can say they play D1 basketball, they made it to a tournament, but not many people can say they're on the cover of Sports Illustrated. So that's pretty dope.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, transitioning away from like, we could talk all day about the Final Four in that year, but individually after Mason, you played professionally. You played in the G League, you played overseas. Can you talk about that experience?
The G League, well, I didn't go straight over. So my first year overseas, I went to the Czech Republic.
Yep.
Man, that was rough. I was in the middle of nowhere. Nobody spoke English, and I lived across the street from a farm. So depending which way the wind blew, that's what I smelled. Everything shut down at like 8 o'clock at night. So you had to make sure you got your dinner. Right after practice, it was like, I got to go get dinner for the night because everything shut down. That was rough. My first year. My second year, I did the G League, or it was the D League then.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. I had Billy Thomas, he used to play for the Wizards. Eddie Gill, he went to Weber State. Billy Thomas went to Kansas, played for the Wizards. Eddie played for the Nets for a second. I learned a lot from those guys. Just their approach. They were always about business. It was no cut cards. They let you know if you slacking because they had been to what we were trying to get to, which is the NBA. So those guys were always in your face about something like, you missed this rotation, or you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, or you're not focused. They let you know every day. So you just felt like your dad was, or your dad was on your team. It was crazy. Like I had never seen that. I mean, you had it in practice in college, but to that extreme, I was like, oh, this is a business. Like, you need to tighten up. So. My approach changed being around those two guys. I had a chance to go to Turkey. I was in Turkey for 2 years. And that was eye-opening because you kind of, without going into detail, you kind of just see that the business it's a business, and whatever they want to do, they can do pretty much. Which is the reason why I was kind of blackballed, which is why I stopped playing. It's like, I'm not going through this after 4 or 5 years. I'm not dealing with this anymore. There's
a lot of mental things that come with it, right? I mean, physically, mentally, it's a lot that comes with it.
Away from home, they can play with your money. Like I had a vet tell me, like, man, that contract is toilet paper. He wasn't lying. It's a lot of stuff that they can do. I know they put some laws in, but they can play with your money over there. So, and the law's in their favor. So kick and scream all you want, but it's just a different world over there. So it's just different. That's all I can say.
No, I hear on that. I think you hear that a lot. I mean, at the end of the day, sports is just like anything. It's still a business, especially when it comes to that level. What recommendations would you share for someone that's trying to go play Division I basketball like yourself, and then two, kind of what you hone in on? There's a lot of things you learn playing professionally overseas in a D League, which is now a G League. What are some recommendations you would have for someone that's trying to get to that route?
Get with somebody who's been there, or that's the biggest thing. Because I know for me, I didn't have anybody who really played at that level, so it was kind of like I was learning as I was going. But now I would say my generation is the first generation to really give back. You see a lot of my generation, guys a couple years older than me, or on the sidelines coaching. Forget with somebody who's been there and get guidance, because this game, you get off to a bad step, it's hard to get back,
Right.
especially if you go to Europe. It's tough because they'll use anything not to pay you. Well, you only average 5 points. I'm not paying you. But they don't care what the situation was. They just they look at numbers and say, we need a reason not to pay him. It's sort
Is
of
it
like
different
NFL.
now, or is it still the same? Do you know?
Like, still the same.
Is it?
Yeah, it's still the same. Yeah, they look for any reason not to pay you.
Interesting.
Those guys, it's just different. That's all I can say. It's just different. There's really nothing that can prepare you till you get there. But I can tell you the stories. But till you go through it.
Yeah.
But again, it's all about getting off to a great start as far as Europe. If not, you hit that reset button after 3-4 years. It's like, man, I don't want to do that again.
Right.
Dealing with some of the headaches you have to deal with, it's just not worth it.
Did you have an agent at the time, or?
Oh yeah, you gotta have an agent.
But even still, though, right? There's still a headache that kind of comes with it.
Yeah, because a lot of the agents, let's say you have an American agent, all they are middlemen, and they just do whatever to get you the job so they can get paid.
Right.
So I know for me, I was told one thing and I get there and it's like, oh, that's not true. It's like, oh, man, I need to fire this agent. So it's a shady business.
Yeah.
So it's important to get with the right person.
Right.
As far as an agent. But again, sometimes you don't know until you deal with that person.
Yeah.
Because they might be good for this particular player, but then for you, it might not be.
Right.
But again, they're just trying to get contracts. So they make sure they get that check. It's just a business. So you gotta be prepared to not get emotional about it.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
No, I definitely think that recommendation you said is, for anything in life, just get someone that's been through that process and someone that you can really trust. So I know I definitely hear you on that. So from my understanding, you went into coaching afterwards. And with that being said, how do you see the game of basketball as a whole change from now to when you played?
Oh, it's positionless. It started when I got overseas. I saw you had to be more cerebral, think the game, think it fast. It's all it has now is just gotten bigger and faster. The game is faster. The guys are bigger.
Yeah.
You got to be versatile in defense. You got to be able to guard multiple positions. You got to be able to read defenses, coverage, pick and roll, how the defense is playing you, so you know what the open spots are. It's pretty much it. The game really hasn't changed. You want to get to the paint, collapse the defense, kick out open shots. The fundamentals of it hasn't changed, but the style of play has.
Right.
So that's the biggest thing. You got to be skilled as a guard. You got to be able to score from all three areas. That's something that I was taught when I was younger. So always worked on my floater, pull up, step backs, always worked on it, threes, always worked on it. So you've got to have that down if you're a guard. Bigs, you got to be vocal because you're the quarterback of the defense. You see everything. You're on the back line.
Right.
You got to protect the rim. You don't have to be much of a post player anymore. You just got to be able to be in a dunk spot, catch dump offs, and finish. Right. Because you're setting the screen and sprinting to the rim, or popping if you're, a big that can shoot it. That's another thing that's changed. Bigs can shoot now like guards, so you step the floor up. But it just got bigger and faster. You just got to be able to read. Read the defense.
Versatility, I think that's the big thing.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Yeah. Yeah, guys like me with 6'1", 6'2", you're a dinosaur now. Those guys are 6'6". 6'6", 6'7", playing point guard.
It's crazy. You like to see Kevin Durant, for example, who's like 6'11", playing like a guard. It's just it's crazy. People shoot from half court. That's like a free throw to them.
They were made in labs, man.
That's crazy.
Made in labs.
Well, hey, the last question I have for you, it's tournament going on. Who do you have winning it? I don't know if you've been following it or.
Man, I'm the last person to ask. I picked Alabama to win it. So.
Okay. What was your rationale? You got to have some type of rationale for it.
Guard play.
Okay.
They play well as a team. I didn't want to go with the usual Gonzaga or Baylor.
Yeah.
And they're athletic. So I just picked Alabama. They play hard. Just pick Alabama. Their bracket looks good to me. They're as far as opponents.
Defensively, they're good too. I think that's really important when you get in a tournament too. Yeah.
So knowing my bracket, it'll be wrong anyway. It's already wrong because
I think that's majority of people after Ohio State lost.
Yeah, I picked them to lose to Florida. I picked Florida to go to the Sweet 16. So at least they're fulfilling and I picked Virginia Tech to lose. So, but yeah, Oral Roberts killed my bracket, and so did North Texas.
Yeah. That's how a lot of people felt when they did the bracket when y'all played. They're like, damn, Georgia, what's up?
Yeah, I used to get a ton of messages like, man, you lost me money. Like, well, oh well, should have just given it to me.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Lamar, it was a pleasure talking to you, man. With the tournament going on
No
right
problem,
now,
man.
when everyone, if you're a college hoops fan, March Madness, you cannot think about the tournament without thinking about George Mason 2016
Yeah.
accomplished. You guys literally changed the landscape of the tournament, and each year, everyone is always thinking, who's the next Cinderella? Who's the next George Mason?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
pleasure talking to you, man. Best of luck
You
to you in
too.
the future. Any last things you want to share before we wrap up?
Nope. Go
Yeah.
take a nap while my daughter's asleep.
I hear you, bro. Hey, I appreciate your time, man. We'll be in touch.
All right, no problem.